Madness Combat is a series that's over 23 years old, and if you've watched my channel at all, you'll definitely be familiar with it. This is a new series where we'll be going over the eras of Madness Combat, of course starting with the first era, which I'll be calling the Classic Era. This will range from the start of the series in 2002 all the way up to 2005, with this being the era where the series will build its reputation and its loyal, strong community where most of the animations will end up coming from. Now these older animations had to be pretty damn good for the series to go on for 20 years plus. You'll also definitely see the age on a lot of these animations, which doesn't make them any less legendary, especially considering these animations were probably made by kids and teens. The Madness Combat community also was a lot more niche back then, of course, in the beginning, and it all centered on a website called Newgrounds. There was no YouTube. Now we will be looking at the main series and fan animations. Definitely won't be able to select all the fan animations, so I'll just select a bunch of the most popular, and probably a few underrated ones here and there. You gotta throw those in. You also get a look at the old community, as I'll be posting some of the comments from the old Newgrounds comments section, as they have pretty much archived all the original comments. Now, Madness Combat has gone pretty mainstream, and I feel like a lot of the animations are pretty well known. Since we're going to the classic era here, I think a lot of these fan animations, a lot of the newer fans might not know. If you enjoy the Madness Combat content, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Now, of course, in the beginning, we have to start off with the first Madness animation, which is not Madness Combat 1. It's actually a short called Marshmallow Madness. This video came out February 19th of 2002 on Newgrounds. And we still have a lot of the original comments and feedback from the very early posts. But like I said, it was just a short, funny animation. Had no meaning, no storyline really, just dudes getting fired off into a marshmallow and some crazy combat. But it did set the tone for the type of animation to come, and it had the grunt design for the first time, which is really just how artists start off drawing. I've seen videos of animators drawing that, and I instantly think Madness Combat, but the most iconic thing in the series, besides the main characters, but I think the grunt takes it all, and this was its first appearance. In July of that same year, Madness Combat 1 came out, which was the animation that gave it its name and set the tone for the type of animation and style for the rest of the series. With crazy, nonsensical violence and goofy slapstick humor, the original Hank is basically just another grunt. This is when he first went crazy. And we got the Boombox Man, who was the one who started it off for real. It was truly just a mixture of comedy, violence, and the actual decent animation that all came into one. And I think it was the perfect time for an animation like this to hit the internet, with the early 2000s and their goofy and crazy ways. January of the next year, 2003, is when he released episode 2. This was the episode where the series truly started to find itself, where it introduced some sort of an actual storyline during the animation, where Hank is sneaking into a facility trying to attack some character. We got the first elevator scene in here, which is iconic. Pretty sure over 50% of Madness animations have at least one elevator scene. And we got to see some new characters and enemies, like the Sheriff and zombies. The second animation represented what the series would turn into more than the first. As you can tell from a lot of the older comments, this is definitely the one that got a lot of people hooked to the series. Now, in the Madness Combat community, the fan animations are the bulk of the content. And the first fan animation was actually released right after 2. It was called Madness Combat Tribute, which mostly followed the Madness Combat 1 storyline with the boombox, turned some of the grunts into Smurfs for some reason, not sure why they're blue. While the animation wasn't as great, it still got tons of 5-star reviews on Newgrounds, showing how positive the Madness community was, even if your animation was okay. But most importantly, it inspired other people to make their own fan content. It only takes one person to show that it can be done to have a lot more rolling in. But before any more fan animations could come out, the third episode of the main series came out, Madness Avenger. Now, this animation took the storytelling and the violence of the series and cranked it up, as Hank pursuing the Sheriff again, except this time the Sheriff activates the improbability drive, which warps times and space, causes crazy events like the sun turning into a marshmallow. We see Hank fighting the first true version of Tricky, where he's not a side character. Hank usually always kills Tricky, but he's a zombie, so he can't die. He's gonna come back always. We also see Jesus and the Sheriff again in this one. I'm not gonna spoil how it ends, even though I feel like most people have watched this series. There might be some that haven't. But episode 3 was definitely a peak classic episode. And with Crinkles releasing 2 animations in the same year, we got tons of fan fan animations in 2003. Now, within the first couple years of the fan content, they were kind of looked at as rip-offs almost. Definitely because the series was so new, people thought they were just trying to rip off the style. To quickly go through a lot from 2003, we got Agent Cliff Part 1, Madness Attack Episode 1, Techno's Madness Tribute, the first Madness Christmas Special, and one of the first kind of hated on Madness fan animations, Madness the Camera. Now, there were probably many more. I'm not going to be able to get to all the fan animations from each year, but this was the first pivotal year of the fan content. But it wasn't long until the next episode in the main series came out, Madness Apotheosis. This one stuck with the same crazy style, kept that quality level, if not brought it up a little bit. This is the animation where we saw the first Madness Combat agents. Tricky the Clown starts to get more and more screen time, get some of our iconic nightclub scenes with Tricky, but of course the crazy violence and slapstick humor is there just as Madness is intended to be. Now, I'm not sure if we have the exact view numbers that it used to pull back in the day, but right now the video's sitting at almost 5 million views on Newgrounds. So I'm guessing at the time it had to be somewhere around 500,000 to a million. And those numbers for a short animation by the 4th episode, especially for the early 2000s, is impressive. Now, in this episode, there is no sheriff. If you watch the series, you'll know why. But he's still fighting Jesus and Tricky, which are constant enemies throughout the series. Now, of course, with the quality of the main series going up, the fan animation quality also went up in 2004. Got a lot of great fan animations, such as Madness Vendetta, Madness Pseudo, Maximum Ninja 1, which is a great start to a sub-series. We had Madness Dream release, Christmas Special 2 that came out that year, and Battle Royale Madness. Came out 13 years before Fortnite. A lot of these early Madness fan animations were pretty choppy, some didn't have as much quality, but the fact that they were there at all I'm sure made people happy, and got people through the wait in between each episode, which in the early days was not that long. Now, when the year 2005 came around, we got another entry into the series, Madness Combat 5 Depredation, where we see the return of the improbability drive of all people. Tricky gets his hands on it. We got more battles with Madness Combat Jesus, and of course the new agents. This is really the era where Tricky was the main villain of the series. Hank gets his iconic look, which he almost retains for the rest of the series, but we'll see later on why not. We get our first look at the binary sword in this, which is a pretty important weapon in the series, and this episode leads you off on a big cliffhanger, which most of them do, honestly. Some of the fan animations we got from the release of this episode in 2005 were Maximum Ninja 3, Madness Mini, Star Wars Rebel Alliance, Bunny Kill, which kind of turned into its own thing, but definitely started off as a Madness Combat tribute, UFO Madness, and of course many more. Now, 2005 was the end of the classic era as I see it. This is where Madness was really starting to get its feet on the ground and grow its fan base, and the fan animations started to get better as they went on, but it was still kind of a small niche little thing. Definitely hadn't really gone mainstream at this time, but definitely made a big stir in the early 2000s internet, and had a lot of people probably getting in trouble on Flash at school. Now, while the series ended up becoming much more, these early episodes still stand the test of time today. With the comedy and fast-paced animation mix, I don't think it'll ever go out of style, and holds a timeless quality in that sense, which is of course why the series has lasted over 20 years with an active community. But that is it for the Madness Classic Era episode. If you haven't checked out Madness already and made it this far in the video, might as well go watch the whole series. And if you're a Madness vet from this era, I'm sure I brought you down memory lane in this video. I started watching Madness late, so the only Madness era I've gone through so far is probably what's going to be the final episode of this series. But it's dope to look back on the early 2000s and see all the comments from the early fans and what it's honestly turned into now. If you got any more fan animations or funny stories from this era, go ahead and leave them in the comments. Well, I do feel like a lot of the content from the early Madness community is probably lost media at this point, so it would be good to hear from the people that lived through it. But that's it for this video. We got tons of more content to go through. This just scratching the surface. So I'll see you guys in the next era of Madness Combat.